I kind of anticipated this, but I wasn't as emotionally prepared as I thought I'd be. The contempt, disrespect, and outright refusal of any intimacy all pointed to the same conclusion: she either had an affair, was contemplating one, or simply grew tired of being my wife. I decided to let her go, and she seemed more comfortable with that decision over the past few months. What baffled me was why she didn't just leave. Why drag it out? Just say goodbye and move on with your life. I didn't transfer any money because we had very little. We lived in a debt-free house, which belonged to my grandmother, and we moved in after her passing. Even then, I noticed some troubling signs, so I spoke with my parents, and they agreed to keep the house in their name for at least a year to ensure we had a stable place. Well, the bank agreed. We lived there for 6 years until one evening when Sandy, having had too much wine, fell asleep with a dozen candles burning. One was too close to the curtains, and when the alarm woke her up, she managed to escape, but the entire living room was already in flames. The firefighters arrived about the same time I did, ready to tackle the fire. When I informed them about my collection of weapons and ammunition, there were a few gunshots, so they stepped back and let it burn. One of my best friends, who was the captain of that station, noted that the fire was beyond saving when they arrived and did not assist with the insurance. Apparently, the insurance policy didn't cover negligence, but they still paid out, giving us around $30,000. It was more than I expected, so we took it and moved into my grandmother's house. We had about $20,000 left, which would be enough for her to find a decent apartment. I would have stayed put, done a few more things, and if we split up, she'd be very disappointed. As I said, I expected it, I just didn't anticipate it being so cold. I worked a different shift, my hours were later than hers, it was winter, and it got dark early. I noticed her car wasn't in the garage and the porch light wasn't on. I went inside, calling her name. She didn't answer, and I found her at the vanity applying makeup. She was wearing a new dress, one with a higher hem and a lower neckline than I was used to. I watched her for a few minutes as she ignored me. "Are we going somewhere?" I asked. "No, I have a date." She seemed to expect an outburst, but it didn't come. I just stared at her until she became uneasy. "Did you hear me?" I said. "I have a date." "No," I said. "No means no. You can date, sleep with whoever you want once you move out. I'll file the papers as soon as I can, but you won't do it while we're living under the same roof. Why don't you pack some things and stay somewhere else for a few days? Give me time to sort everything out, then we can talk about how to split things." Her laughter seemed almost crow-like. "I'm not leaving. I like this house, and when it becomes mine, I'll decorate it the way I want. If you prove you're a dear, at least I'll get most of the money when we're forced to sell. Do us both a favor and move in with your parents until this is all over." "No, you need to go." "Oh, I will, in about 30 minutes. Don't come here when I'm back, or I'll call the police. I'm sure I can come up with something to get you kicked out. I heard they'll detain you for 48 hours for domestic violence. I think by then I can change the locks and get a restraining order." She was a bit shaken when I smiled. "Whatever you think, don't do that." "I'm serious, Henry. This is settled. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to fix this lipstick. This bright red has to be the perfect shade. It should complement the ring around its base, don't you think?" I just smiled and left the bedroom. I knew she didn't have the courage to ask him to pick her up, which meant she was planning to meet him. I walked through the garage, grabbing the aluminum baseball bat I used during the summer. For good swings took care of her headlights and taillights. She won't be driving this car. I returned and saw her purse on the counter. I opened it, noticing 6 packs of rubber bands. As I pulled out her phone, not wanting to make a mess, I took it to the garage, placed it on the workbench, grabbed a hammer, and smashed it into 3 pieces. I almost stuck push pins in the rubber bands but stopped, thinking she might claim it was my doing. She entered the kitchen as I poured coffee, wearing the highest heels I had ever seen. Seeing me, she frowned. "Get out," she shouted, pointing to the door. I just smiled and took a sip of coffee. She sighed. Fine, if that's what you want. Look for cops around here soon. Maybe you'll want to call your dad to bail you out when you can. I took another sip of coffee. Why would the cops come? I didn't threaten you. I didn't lay a hand on you. All I did was refuse to let you kick me out of my own house. That's not what I'll tell the cops. You threatened me when I asked for a divorce and insulted me. I fear for my life. They always believe the woman. I'm not kidding, Henry. You have about 30 minutes before I call. She stomped away as much as she could in those heels. 5 minutes later, shouts were heard through the door. She burst in, and the expression on her face made me a little nervous. Ah. What did you do to my car? How did you assume? I damaged your car. You shouldn't leave it parked on the street like that. For a second, she just stared at me. Never mind, I'll just call him to pick me up. I'll even let you watch as I kiss him goodbye when we leave. Don't be surprised if you don't see my head when we drive away. It was my turn to make her nervous as I smirked. Sure, call him. It will give us a chance to get to know each other better. I can tell him how crazy you can be. I hope he doesn't have long-term plans. After all, you're proving to him that marriage vows don't mean much to you. She raised her voice a few decibels when she found her phone wasn't working. Stomping back, she returned in sneakers, carrying her heels. Have a nice evening, I said, smiling. You'll get yours. I still heard her cursing as she walked down the street. It was almost too much when I saw her knock on the first door and not be let in. She must have repeated this for a quarter of a block until she realized no one was going to help her. Thanks, Mom, I called her when I figured it all out, and she contacted all the neighbors. I grew up on this street, everyone knew and liked me, not so much her. I knew she would soon approach the phone, so I sat back and waited. It took the police about 20 minutes to respond. At that time, I didn't know she had returned, staying in the shadows waiting for the police to arrive. I knew one of the officers, a girl I graduated high school with. I invited them in and offered them a cup of coffee. They seemed a bit uneasy. Let me guess, you came because of a domestic disturbance call? See any broken furniture? See any scratches on my fingertips or torn clothes? They shook their heads. Then why do you think there were any disturbances? She said, you threatened her. Henry told her you'd ruin her life when she told you she was leaving. I'm sorry, Henry, but the law is clear. We have to arrest you. Oh God, that sounds serious. How serious is giving false statements? The man spoke first. If you have any evidence of that, now would be the time to show us. So, I showed them the video taken with a mobile phone camera. Both cops frowned. Well, Henry, this gives you plenty of options. Perjury is not in your hands, it depends on us. However, you can use the video to obtain a restraining order. You can clearly hear her say, you'll get yours, a clear threat if we ever heard one. It seems you guys don't need to be in close proximity right now. You can apply tomorrow and use our names as evidence, mean meh. If you have any way to secure the house so she can't return, that might be a good idea. If she comes back, give us a call. Henry, I remember how sweet you can be when someone offends you, so let's not let it go to court. Do you hear what I'm saying? Yes, ma'am, sweet cheeks. Oops, sorry. I know nobody has called you that since high school, especially since you started carrying a weapon. Old habits, you know. Whoever is in your life right now is a lucky one. Heather blushed and left. It seems I suddenly developed the ability to annoy any woman I come in contact with. The guy smirked. Sweet cheeks, huh? She just went through a terrible divorce. You're not the only one with a spouse wanting to date. Please don't make us come back tonight. They didn't need to come back. While I was talking to the cops, my loving wife sneaked into the garage with the brilliant idea of taking my car. The flaw in this plan was that she left her keys on the kitchen table and couldn't get in with the police. Then she saw them. I always kept a set of keys to the monster on the workbench. That's what she called it when she saw it for the first time. It was an old, but in perfect condition, full-size four-wheel drive Suburban from 1989. I think you could fit both our other cars in it. We only used it when I needed to tow something with my trailer, 2 or 3 times in the summer to tow a friend's pontoon for fishing, and as a snowplow. What she didn't account for was that I had disconnected the garage opener chain in case exactly this happened, to keep her from getting in. She started the beast. The sound was incredibly loud in the small space. She hit the garage opener button and waited until she thought it had lifted, then released the clutch, thinking to leave as quickly as possible. She should have turned on the light, otherwise, she would have seen that the garage didn't open. The garage door couldn't compare to the power the 454 had or the torque the beast's low gear gave. She shot backward with the sound of screeching sheet metal right into the front of the police car. She had enough momentum to push. The car backed up a few feet, causing significant damage to the front. Heather reached for the car door as the beast burst out of the garage. 5 more seconds, and it could have ended very badly. Her partner wasn't as lucky. He had opened the door and was about to get in when she crashed into the patrol car, and the door knocked him about 10 feet down the driveway. Heather, being a redhead, had a temperament that matched her hair. As I rushed upstairs to check on Officer Jones, she was pulling my loving wife out of the wreckage by her hair, screaming all the while. By the way, my loving wife, Ginger, if anyone cares about her name, was largely out of it and just groaned once they cuffed her. Heather rushed to her car and turned on the radio. Officer down, officer down. Send help to 411, Elm Drive right now. Officer Jones was unconscious, most of the impact had hit his face, and it was quite clear his nose was broken. I gently cradled his head in case of spinal injuries so he wouldn't choke on his own blood. I must have held his head for about 20 minutes before the first ambulance arrived. 10 minutes later, it looked like a police assembly. All the on-duty officers were there. Heather went with Officer Jones to the hospital since her car was out of commission after giving a statement to the detective and directing him to me. Ginger got a free ride in the ambulance too, due to some bruises, a couple of injuries from the airbag, and a pretty good bruise. I repeated all of this 4 times before they were satisfied. Being a small town, I knew a couple of police officers, including the chief, who was also my friend's dad and our baseball coach when we were in high school. Any news on Officer Jones, Coach? I asked. Nothing definite, Henry, but right now it doesn't look too bad. They'll know more once they do the MRI and X-rays, he replied. I thanked him and was already leaving when he called me back. Just so you know, your wife seems to be okay if the charges against her for everything we're accusing her of can be called fine. How can you accuse her of extreme stupidity? Here are the consequences. Ginger got out on bail, went to the bank, and withdrew $19,000, leaving me $1,000. She needed the money to return her parents' bail and hire a good lawyer. I still had a restraining order in place, so we communicated through our attorneys. Our first meeting went extremely poorly for her. I had my parents and my lawyer with me because their contribution was relevant to the case. The lawyer listed her demands. She needs a house or at least half its value. I knew she had made a deal with a friend, a realtor, to buy it for her and then sell it back, using her share of the proceeds for the down payment. She knew I would never agree to sell it to her. My lawyer handed a paper to her attorney. He seemed surprised, and Ginger screamed. Her lawyer explained to her that the house belongs to his father, and his name is nowhere in the documents. You can't get half of what doesn't belong to you, he said. She was still boiling with anger when he stated the next demand. My client wants all new furniture in the house, living room, dining room, furniture from all bedrooms, silverware, and new kitchen appliances. My lawyer responded with more documents. Everything we bought was paid by check from my father's account. We would pick something, I would drive it to her place, fetch Dad in his truck, he would write a check, and I would give him cash. I'm afraid all the furniture taken on rent belongs to the homeowner. None of this is communal property, but he agreed to let you choose one of the bedrooms, I suppose, for nostalgia. In the end, almost everything we owned was out of her reach. I fixed her car the following weekend, taking it to her parents' house. When I found out they had left, trying to post bail for their daughter, the judge called me and my lawyer into his office. During the divorce, reviewing the papers, he tried to hide a smirk but couldn't quite. "Clever boy, you cut her legs right from under her. You knew this would happen, didn't you?" I shrugged. I didn't quite envision this scenario, but I knew it wouldn't end well. I was just defending myself by all the rules. "She owes me $10,000 of that money she took, but if she just signs the papers, we'll be even." He grumbled, "Fair enough." Back in the courtroom, he told Ginger everything was documented and legal, and there was nothing he could do about it. But I agreed to let her keep all the money she took if she just agreed to the divorce. If not, I would demand it back. She was furious, but she had no choice. The judge slammed his gavel, and I became a free man. She had to forget about me and focus on her other problems, filing a false police report and assaulting an officer with a vehicle. She got lucky and ended up on probation for a year. I ran into her a month later at Walmart. She wanted to talk, so we ordered drinks at the cafe and sat down. It took her a minute to find her voice. "Why were you so cruel to me?" she asked. "I could ask you the same. When exactly did you decide to end our marriage? You know, you could have just broken up instead of making the last few months so miserable. And what was the reason you threw your date in my face? You lived with me long enough to know I wouldn't just give up." She sat for a minute before speaking. "I wasn't happy, and I haven't been for a long time. I hated when our house burned down, hated moving here, hated leaving our friends. That's probably where it all started. Looking back, I realize you're a good guy and I should have just talked to you. That's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard from you. I didn't want to go back home either. I liked where we lived. If you had given me even the slightest hint that you wanted to stay, we could have taken the insurance money and bought something else. Even after we moved, we still could have gone back. I think maybe that was part of it, but the truth was you wanted to leave. Why all the song and dance? In the end, I know it wasn't all your fault, but I blamed you for everything. I really didn't care about anyone else, I just wanted to hurt you. I regret how I behaved. You were right, we should have just talked and parted ways amicably." I stood up. "Well, that was enlightening. You need to see someone, Ginger. You really screwed up. I heard you're going back home, so I doubt I'll see you again. Try to live a decent life, and if you fall in love with someone else, use our experience as a learning tool." I didn't say goodbye, I just walked away. I saw her 4 years later when she returned for a friend's funeral. She looked almost the same, maybe 5 pounds heavier, with longer hair. She saw me and smiled, but we never spoke. About 2 years after all this turmoil, I ran into Sergeant Sweet Cheeks at the shooting range. We talked, and I learned she was engaged to Officer Jones, who had fully recovered. He received a pretty good compensation from my auto insurance, and they planned to use it for a down payment on a house. 18 months later, I saw her again and asked how she liked married life. It seems he didn't have such a high opinion of me as you do. I caught him with another woman, tied to him, and the woman belonged to another man. We parted not on the best terms. I would like to sympathize, but it's not like that. She seemed surprised. Why not? Because you're free again? I hope so. I heard you've become a detective now. Can you use those brilliant skills of yours to guess what I'm thinking? She blushed slightly and then laughed. No, you're in luck. If you genuinely care about me and are willing to treat me as I deserve, you might find that I'm inclined to share what I truly enjoy with the right person. Pick me up at 7, wear a suit, and spare me the nonsense. Now, stop talking and take action. I arrived precisely at 7 o'clock, dressed in my best suit. Whether it's due to genetics or training, even with my occasional foolishness, I knew better than to complain. I didn't get to sleep with her until we were married 9 months after our first date. I can assure you it was worth the wait. Now, she's Captain Sweet Cheeks. I can indulge in nonsense, but calling her sweet cheeks in public isn't the same, though she does enjoy it when I say it in private. Ginger was seeing a psychologist. I'm not sure if it helped or not. She married twice. The second husband seemed cautious, keeping her on a tight leash and reminding her of me when she misbehaves, saying that I'm not the only one who can treat her like that. It seems to help her stay in line. At least, according to the cousin who filled me in, it's good for her. Our daughter Kelly got married today, and our wedding gift to her was my grandmother's old house. Heather never liked it, and after her parents passed away, we moved into her large, 2-story farmhouse. Our son Mark will inherit it when we're gone, which I hope won't be anytime soon. After Kelly left for her honeymoon, I surprised my sweet cheeks with tickets to a European cruise, a gift for our 25th wedding anniversary. She's always dreamed of going, and I finally saved enough to make it happen. 2 weeks of traveling through Europe, a dream vacation for her. I have to go now. Sweet Cheeks is calling me back to bed, offering me a little blue pill and a glass of water. It looks like it's going to be a very pleasant vacation.